Hail, hail, the Celts are here, and what did I tell you on the preview, guys? I just had a feeling there was something in the air. Feyenoord were definitely not their invincible self, and if the right Celtic and the right Martin O'Neill pre-match team talk and master plan were put into place, then really all bets were off, anything could happen. We might have, again, it was something we floated with Martin O'Neill, or with maybe, some other kind of moves and shakes in the background with who could be the next permanent Celtic manager, that we could bring some sort of sucker punch element into this game, and we duly delivered. This was one to remember, and one that really does correct the wrongs of some of the points we've dropped earlier in this campaign, particularly at home, where now we can look at being on par for the pre-Europa League predictions that we did, where now we're looking at the last 3 games and thinking about, can we get to maybe 10 or 11 points? Can we make it happen? And all of a sudden we're getting a little bit more optimistic about Europe again. In the video today we'll break down everything we've seen from Feyenoord versus Celtic, what we learned about the players, what we've seen from Martin O'Neill and from the dugout, and really what can we take from this game into Martin O'Neill's final match in charge against Hibs at the weekend. At any point in the video, if you do laugh, you learn, you like something or whatever, please do like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. And guys, we are off the back of probably our biggest month ever on the channel, so thanks to everyone who has tuned into the videos. Hit the like button, hit the hype as well whenever you've got the option to do that on your mobile phone, and leaving comments and interacting in the live chats and everything else. It's been absolutely fantastic, the growth we've seen this month on the channel, and it's down in no small part to all the interactions from you guys, so thanks very much. Get into the comment section on this one and let me know your big takeaways, your thoughts and feelings from this one. Has it renewed your optimism around Europe and what we should do in this campaign overall? Is it just a kind of silver lining on the entire picture, but there's bigger fish to fry? Let me know. But yeah, let's just get stuck straight into this one, because I was really excited to even begin to think about the video we'd be making after this game when the team sheet came out. Now, as you can see, and we all know in the fullness of time, how the team actually shaped up, but when the team list did come out, particularly with McKeown, who just does not feature in Europe at all for Celtic whatsoever, it really raised a lot of questions, and nobody really knew, in terms of the Celtic fans, like really what was the plan here, what was happening, who's playing where, and what's going on. And bet your bottom dollar the exact same thing was happening in the Feyenoord dressing room. So we really started, even before kickoff, I would say, really putting them in the back foot and putting a lot of uncertainty and indecision perhaps into their thinking. I thought Johan Malby on the pre-match coverage on TNT or whatever floated an idea of this maybe looking a bit more 4-4-2-ish with 4 midfielders making up the bank of 4. And I thought, that's actually quite a clever idea. I could see that working, and gives you a good ability, to 2 tight banks of 4, make it hard to play in between the lines, but each of them have all got kind of license to break away and run. And then with the pace of like Dyson and Yang on the press up front, I could kind of see how that would work, but it was kind of half right. We did actually play much more of a 4-4-2 in this shape, but it wasn't Yang supporting Dyson. And I don't think Mialby outwardly said Yang, but he said 4 midfielders in the bank. But it was Hatate who was up here. Now, this is something that is very familiar, and there was a few things in this game that we've seen that was very familiar, and I think we all shared that small intake of breath of, oh no, like, we're doing this, but we're going to get into it as the game goes on. But I thought this was really clever for Martin O'Neill. I think one of the things that, through Hatate's kind of hot spurts, and, we'll kind of get into the game overall and his contribution, but the problem with kind of all the midfielders is they're all Swiss Army knives, and part of Hatate, his kind of multi-utility kind of ability that he has at the team is he's very good at recovery defending, he's very good at getting the ball out of tight spaces and getting it up the pitch, but where he really wants to be, and really where as a team you should be trying to place him, is definitely in and around the final third, because he is very good in tight spaces, and if you can get him going over and beyond strikers, he's very, very dangerous. So I thought this was quite a good move, and it kind of helped with the press. Now, I thought a nice little kind of subplot into the match was Ayase Ueda, who is a player I'm no stranger to. I've seen him play a bunch of times at this point, and Watanabe as well in at centre back, because like Dyson's in the Japan team anyway, of course we know that, right? But for Hatate, who is itching, desperate to get into that team, this is, and I said this in Baz's live stream before the game as well, that maybe this was like shop window time. And kind of what I meant by that is, if you think about Lagerbielke playing Feyenoord at Celtic Park last time, the brief minutes we gave him the Rocky last year, and maybe even some of the fleeting minutes that Bernardo has had, and again, some of his belief he might be on the way out in January, just reading the tea leaves and whatever. It's not that we're throwing the towel in or we're not taking the game seriously or anything like that, but some of these players need some highlight packages for their agents to go and shop them around. And whether or not that is the situation with Yang in this game, I definitely think that Hatate seen this game as absolute audition time. It's a big European fixture, early kickoff, high chance a lot of people in terms of just tuning into this is it's going to be one of the games that's watched, but also by the Japan manager as well. And you really did feel that Hatate brought his best self in this game. He was hyper motivated, had a good role that suited him, and overall, you know, the way the game went, it worked out quite nicely. Now, but before we get into the goals and how everything kind of worked well for us, like I said, there was a few things in this game that were familiar, right? There was a few stages in this game where, because McKeown was on like the right side of the midfield, like he was doing the kind of wingery job and trying to be wide for us when possible. But make no mistake about it, if we were going to try and get up the pitch, we were going to try and do it with the pace of Yang. We were going to try and do it by getting Hatate into spaces, or particularly Dyson and playing in and around from him. And as a result of that, what we would look to do is bring Feyenoord, like you can see here, into their own half. Because from open play, Ayase Ueda was very mobile and very active all the way through this game, particularly occupying the defence. He did a great job of holding off Liam Scales on one occasion and was a really strong leader of the line for Feyenoord. Leo Sawyer was a player that we previewed and said, like, you know, again, this guy has some potential. I think you can see the techers and the ability that he has and why Feyenoord are kind of backing him. And that Kobe Donovan, if called upon for this game, would be a good opponent, you know, would do well against this guy, and it would be a great experience for kind of reaffirming his progression that we've had so far against Red Star. I know he played Braga and it wasn't as good, and so on and so forth. And, you know, I think you can see that, you know, in terms of physicality, technical ability, and, you know, in terms of like maybe even how green behind the ears, both of them. Is that even wet behind the ears? Green behind the gills? Whatever. Sawyer and Donovan both were. They matched up actually quite well. Nobody overly got the better of one another. This Sawyer was given the ball a lot, and they were trying to get something out of Donovan. And although this guy did, you know, buy a wee yard of space once or twice, get across, get a shot away, Donovan was never really exposed in this, which was nice to see. And they were very happy to try and play it down to Haj Musa down on this side here. And I do think Tierney had probably one of the toughest jobs defensively to try and keep this guy quiet, because he was very mobile, very energetic, could go outside, inside, and I think Tierney did well to limit him to the few chances that he did create in this one. But with Feyenoord having such an active front line, and they were at home as well, they were getting up the pitch. You know, they were going to try and, push the envelope, make chances happen. This boy Targaline was on the roam the entire game here. Him and Engels had a bit of a battle as the game went on, and Sem Steen through the middle was supporting the striker quite often, and again giving us problems in the middle of the pitch where we had to stay with our runner, had to stay with the marker, watch where, and again with McKeown's role in here, the boy Smile never left defence. He was basically a centre-back for all intents and purposes. Maybe Latomba would have went forward, and that just allowed McKeown to just be a little bit more narrow in here and just crowd the place out a bit, which I thought was good opposition analysis from Celtic in terms of, we don't need to worry about this guy because he's not going to bomb forward, he's going to play forward, and, you know, we can leave these guys one-on-one. We back Donovan and we'll give him support in here. But the thing that would happen that would give us a wee bit of flashbacks, PTSD, deja vu, whatever, is, you know, we would play the ball long, maybe from like a Scales or maybe even a Schmeichel, could be a pass from Engels, somebody like that, and we would hit Yang into space, or we would hit Dyson into space. And from there, we didn't always go really like super direct to goal. And what would happen is that would trigger Feyenoord, right? And we use the word trigger in football kind of like content and analysis and whatever quite often, and it's normally related to individuals, like when does the front line go and trigger, what's the trigger for them to go and press a defence, etc. But this is an entire team trigger where they're in a state of attack, they're on the ball, and by us hitting the ball long and getting it to pacey players in space, it forces their entire team to retreat, to return and become back into a defensive unit. And when all the players come back and the space kind of dies down, and Dyson's gave the ball to Yang, and Yang's gave the ball to McGregor, and McGregor gives the ball to Scales, you think, oh Jesus, here we go again. We've had a great opportunity to get up the pitch, try and counter-attack, and we've just absolutely stifled it. But this passage of play, this sequence of play, is useful, can be valuable. The problem is we've kind of done it to death, and we kind of do it against teams that are like constantly just in their box. Now, if a team is constantly in their box and on the edge of the box, then doing this horseshoe of death stuff, passing it around the back, can be, you know, like watching paint dry. It can be absolutely brutal. But because Feyenoord have just had to retreat across the entire pitch, they then get themselves back into position by shifting them left to right and then playing a bit of a diag for somebody else in, is a situation you can buy space, you can create indecision, and you can try and, you know, force your way into an attack that you've prepared for. You know that you're going to do the switch, and then once it gets to Engels, he's going to fire the ball into the box for Hatate or back to Dyson, that sort of thing. And the horseshoe of death, or the kind of recycling of the ball, was very useful actually in this game and created some very good openings for us. And really, this was the largest part of the first half. Really, it was a good football match in the sense of we did dominate the ball to the extent of we could push them back into their own half. We could get on the ball, move it around from left to right, try and create some chances. We probably didn't get quite the amount of shots I would have liked in the first half, but it was a very good kind of football affair where, again, they would win the ball, play it into space for their man Sawyer, or it could be Haj Musa on the other side, and they would force us to retreat and defend, and we'd get into two banks of four, and we would leave Dyson and Itate. They would stay away from the centre-backs at Amihedzovic and Watanabe, and if the ball came into full-backs or into midfield, that's when they would kind of activate, and we would just make sure, like, don't concede chances, don't concede goals. And it was a fairly impeccable first half performance, or first half, like, footballing endeavour from both teams, really. And it was ultimately a first half that was all about mistakes. The first mistake probably came, I don't know if it's for us or against us necessarily, but the last touch comes off the back of a Feyenoord defender. So if Luke McKeown did score this goal, I think this was in the first like 10 minutes of the game, then we would have went 1-0 up quite early, and it could have been sliding doors, could have been a whole different match. Obviously it didn't go in, and at the time it was given as offside. He can maybe forget about it and not be, you know, thinking about it as the game goes on, which is great, but this might have bit us in the bum. And Celtic away in Europe, this is the sort of thing that we are normally left ruining, but thankfully this wasn't a mistake that would come back to bite us. The first mistake in the game, yeah, it's just after the 10-minute mark. Now, unfortunately, in the highlight package we have here, you don't see the sequence of play that sets this up. Feyenoord have just had the ball all the way back to the centre-back, and then he's given it into the boy in midfield here, number 8, that looks like. Targaline, I'm going to guess that is number 28. But what's made this sequence of play happen is Austin Trusty has just broke rank. Austin Trusty has just carried the ball from defence into midfield, kind of lost it, but then didn't give up the ghost, kept pressing his man, kept trying to win it back, and he forced the ball all the way back to defence before then turning and recovering back into position. Now, I love the fact that Trusty tried to grab a bit of initiative in this game. I thought that was a nice moment in the game until it didn't work. We've seen him do a little bit of this in his, like, you know, return to the team over the last couple of weeks, and with the imminent arrival of Nancy, you can imagine he's probably trying to show, again, the best version of himself, show all the tools in his toolkit, all the weapons in his arsenal. Again, I'm getting things all over the place today, apologies. But, like, he's gave up the ghost and he's ran back into position. And we're going to slow this all the way down, right, because the ball moves so fast. You can't really see it without the images being blurry. But as this ball goes over the top, we've got a rather high line because Trusty's just broke rank. The defence has had to step up and try and cover for him. You can see here on page, we have Dyson, we have Rio, Yang, McGregor, McKeown. This must be Engels. None of them have dropped in to cover for Trusty. Now, he's dropped in and covered himself, so kind of fine, but as this ball's already in transit, this ball's already in the air, everyone's already retreating and covering in behind him. Look at Trusty, as it turns round, everyone is belting it back. Tierney, Scales, they've got 2 men to deal with, and you can watch the highlight back in full speed for yourself, okay? And this isn't really like to hammer Trusty or anything like that, but he's just absolutely gassed himself out. He's got back into position, and then have you ever played FIFA and tried to sprint with like a big defender that has no stamina? That's kind of just what happens here. He tries his best to keep up, but they have deliberately exploited that pocket in and behind Trusty because he's not managing. And Trusty, the thing about him is his pace in these situations, but you know, Feyenoord, one mistake, they cut us open and they really exploited it. And how much blame do you want to lie at Trusty for that? I think if we came out of this game with a negative result, you know, you'd be definitely be carrying some sort of a can for that because it's your guy, it's your pocket of space. If you know you can't, and that's one of the superpowers that Dyson has, is that he can do that run and then go again really quickly. And Trusty is absolutely gassed himself out here, and you know, they've just caught us out to go 1-0 up 10 minutes in, and after that McKeown chance, it does feel, again, like a lot of deja vu. We've seen this movie before. And that sequence that was kind of going to be familiar but then was very different was what led to the opening goal for Celtic. As you can see, we've just forced the ball down the left. You can see how high Yang is, and even Kieran Tierney, who are both up in the left-hand side position here, dragging back the boy Haj Musa and the right-back Latomba being next to them. So we've just went up the left-hand side, and then we've done the whole, you can see where McGregor is. You know how this is opened up for the passage of play for where we're at right now. And because this isn't against, like I mentioned before when we were using the tactics board, because this isn't against Kilmarnock or Ross County or, you know, whoever, where the whole team is in the box, because we've just forced them up the pitch, we've made them all run back into their half, And then because we've cycled it from left to right, look at the team right now. Now, fair enough, Feyenoord have done a good job to get 4 people over to this space. Again, something we highlight on the channel quite a lot. A lot of teams are very good at just getting 4 players to one side of the pitch to try and defend against a winger, a midfielder, and probably the fullback. And it can be very hard, and it's normally in a much tighter space, maybe even a little bit closer to the corner flag, and we really struggle to find the way out and create the goal scoring opportunity. But because of how this sequence of play is built out, look at the gap between the centre backs. That is you could build a bridge there. You really could. The gap between the centre midfielders as well through the middle, and you can just see this whole channel that Hatate has just got an absolute sniff of here, and he knows one thing and one thing only. Like, I am going in there. I am going to get that. And if McKibben can, and we all know he does, loop that ball in for me, then we're going to go get in and behind them. And Hatate knows he's got Dyson on the prowl, so between the two of them, something could happen here. So again, great tempo, because once we've done the whole switch of play thing, the thing we're all worried about is everyone falls asleep and just, let's get a touch of the ball, let's move it out here. But there's a space been opened up by it, finally. Some initiative is taken. McKibben does great to put the ball in here. Now, there's not a lot of pressure on the ball. The ball's allowed to bounce. Hatate doesn't need to protect the ball with his body coming into the box. And this is really bad defending, really, from Feyenoord, make no mistake about it. But it is a first half. The main currency is mistakes. I can't say that enough. And Hatate, does he know Yang is going to get in here? I'm not sure. It doesn't feel like this ball's played for Dyson because it's bouncing, and it feels like he's really hoping that Yang can make the ground up. He's not even in frame at this point as he's about to release it. And Yang, in the flash of a light, you have to feel that this has came straight off the training ground. Because like we were chatting about earlier on, like McKibben is in a good position here to be that kind of wide playmaker, play the ball on the inside with this left foot, which is something that Arne Engels cannot do. Whenever we've put Arne Engels out in this position to be the Matt O'Reilly replacement, his right foot doesn't have the same passing lanes. Arne Engels has looked a lot better on the left side of this old, Brendan Rodgers shape that's maybe somewhat reminiscent here. And McKibben is going to be that guy where he's going to be like a wide kind of playmaker, trying to suck the fullback in and play into some of these spaces that could come in behind him here. And Yang has to know that if the ball's on McKibben, he's back post, back post, back post, back post. It just feels like something that would have came straight from the training ground. So I'm inclined to believe that Hatate, Dyson, Yang, they were all on song, all on page for this. And Yang, and again, it was really great. You can hear Martin O'Neill basically parrot and paraphrase what we've said on the channel for so long. But Yang has some things that you cannot teach people, We've seen it with so many wingers that have came through the doors over the last couple of years. Yang puts people on the back foot. He can go by his first man kind of well enough. And the second man, he can always ask big questions of. He's physically very good. He's very fast, very strong, very brave. His crosses don't really come off. His passing, his link connection doesn't really come off. And he does get chances like this. And I think his hit rate is maybe like 50-50. I don't know how many goals Yang scored for Celtic, maybe 8 or 9 at this point. He maybe could be on 15, for example, over the time he's been here. What a great moment. What a great goal. And these two guys have played together for a couple of years. This is the sort of compounding training, experience, cohesion that in big games, big moments like this, teams need to rely upon, need to call upon. We've referenced this kind of thing on the channel before as the puke, and I don't know if this is quite a puke, but Yang and Hatate, they know each other very well. They train together every day for the last however many years. And there's been a lot of chat about Yang in the aftermath of the game, and maybe we'll do that when we get to the match ratings a little bit more. But he is only missing a little bit to being like a very valuable Celtic player from being like a somewhat useful one where he's been at in current times. And this was a big goal, get half an hour into the game to get us back level, and you really did feel at this moment that the team was quite unified. We had a lovely spirit all of a sudden on the pitch that looked quite unfamiliar to recent times. I just wanted to show this highlight as well. This is a counter-attack that comes from Feyenoord. It's in the highlight package after we go 1 each up. Again, just to further underline, this was a game, this was a first half in particular of mistakes. We're playing the ball from defence into Dyson Maeda, who has got a crowd of guys around him. Now, he does have a lot of midfielders beyond him, so he should be able to play a ball around the corner. I'm not going to hold that against him, but it is a bit too blind and a bit too poor, and he basically gives it away. Now, the sequence of play that happens here between the Feyenoord people here, the Feyenoord 4, this is Ueda, by the way. He gets on his bike in a big way, as does Haj Musa, who is the breakout player here that gets the attack going. But this all happens in so quick succession. Ball falls to our man here. One touch pass to 40. One touch pass to this guy, who then lays it back to this guy who's now facing forward. You know, nice quick one-touch, close quarters possession football. And the whole point of that is we've got the exit guy. For us, it's maybe like Yang or Dyson or whatever. For them, it was Haj Musa in this game. The pace, the wide man that's going to get you up the pitch. Tierney's not managed to track him even at this stage here. Yang's not going to track him. McGregor wants to cut the pass out, and you know, you can see how this one's going to go eventually. But lovely kind of quick interlinking play. And then that ball slid through, takes out the whole team. And again, they're counter-attacking with Haj Musa, their quick attacking X-Factor kind of winger, and their main striker, Ayase Ueda. Now, great shift here. And this is what I'm talking about with Trusty. One of the main things that he's got in his locker is recovery pace and good game awareness, good defensive nous, I would say, to be in the right position and shut things off. But look at this. We have got Kobe Donovan about to do the 100-metre sprint. He is off to the races to catch this up. Haj Musa takes a big first touch and then 2 little touches to control the ball here. And we do very well to recover defend. You know, like Trusty's going to get showing him up with the ball here. Yang has got the afterburners on and started chasing this kid back up the pitch. Fair play, good shift to him. And Donovan has done well to keep up with Ueda, and now he's about to be playing him offside. And the movement here from Ueda, like, I just thought was top class striker play. And this is the sort of movement and this is the sort of sequence that we should be looking to do. Like when we are in a deep block, and we've done this a few times quite successfully, but this is a sort of goal that Celtic should be scoring. Feyenoord is a chance that they've tried to create, and ultimately they didn't. But Ueda here just checks the shoulder and brilliantly just gets in and behind, gets round the backside of the fullback. Haj Musa is then able to slide him through for a one-on-one, and we defend it ultimately very well. But the opportunities that Feyenoord got, like this, always came from some sort of mistake. They didn't really dominate the game and like smash us over. There was no period of the game that happened, which was lovely and refreshing. The second goal, I love the second goal in so many ways, right? Because I was actually getting a little bit annoyed in the first half that it felt like Dyson Maeda was going nowhere near Watanabe. When it came to like pressing, and then it kind of looked more and more as the first half went on. It was more that him and Hatate weren't going to press the centre backs, and then it kind of made a little bit more sense to me. But this was like, for me, the first where we really let Dyson off the leash against, you know, the centre backs and the goalkeeper. Interesting to see that Engels is actually the closest man in support. He just stuck to the centre mid, that seems Stein. And these guys, like, maybe keeping Maeda's pressing ability kind of up your sleeve for when the moment is right, rather than just burning them the whole game, like press everyone, Dyson, you know. It was actually quite smart. We didn't see too much of it, but whenever he did do it, like you felt the temperature in the room go up. McGregor's actually in the picture here for this as well, so nice kind of midfield support to follow their midfielders that are going deep. And again, some basic Martin O'Neill type principles you maybe feel come into this. And when the ball falls back here to Tate, you know he can see open net, chance to score, just put the ball across the line, just hit the back of the net. And I was so happy we went 2-1 up at half time, essentially. Because with how some of the games have went against us in Europe, particularly even the last time we went to the Tub, or whatever the hell they call it, the Coop, the Feyenoord Stadium, we had the Dyson Maeda red card. We finished the game with 9 men. Nothing really went our way. So to finish the first half, you know, having the goals and the result to back up, like a good performance, a good fight, yeah, man for man, against a team that we should be, you know, fighting with on any given day. Felt like a little bit of karma coming back in, didn't it? Look at Trusty here. Like, he's buzzing as well. Now, coming into the game, we did say on the preview that Feyenoord were clearly showing signs of tiring, you know, around the 60-minute mark, was some of the intel that we were getting from some of the sources that I can track and follow over from the Deutschland, or from the Netherlands. Sorry, I probably shouldn't say Deutschland, that's Germany, isn't it? And again, we, you know, there was no Quinton Timber that started this game, which was maybe a bit of a surprise. And part of the pre-match thoughts around our team was maybe we are going to, you know, keep some cards up our sleeve to try and win the game in the second half if we can keep it tight. Never mind if we're actually bloody winning the game later on. And on the 62nd minute, we had a substitution where we took off McKeown for Negren. Feyenoord had put a bit more pace on the wings with Diarra on one side, and then this new Coop, who was quite happy to kind of bomb up the right-hand side as well. And a big part of the tactical, the football element of the game maybe kind of washed off as the substitutions happened, as the Feyenoord players started to tire, because we were in control of the game. We were winning coming into the second half. There was not any real great pressure or onus on us to take the game to them anymore. Although individually, the likes of Yang, Hatate, Dyson. I'd probably put the two centre mids into this, McGregor and Engels. You know, 50-50s, watch your man, even Tierney and Musa, like, everyone was doing their job to a T. You know, Feyenoord didn't really get an inch in this game, and when we were in control and we were winning, you know, the second half, I don't want to say it flew by, but it did go a bit quicker than the first half. Eventually, Tierney comes off, along with Yang. We bring on Dane Murray and move Scales into left back, which I thought was quite interesting again, and we bring on Tuneke, which was, again, good to see him in the later stages of the game. I don't really feel... Tuneke had some interesting defensive contributions in this game. We didn't really, sadly, see him get further forward and attack the game as much as we would have liked. And when Negren comes into the McKeown position, essentially, we don't really get too much of the ball out to him in open play, but it is more about just a wee bit of extra striker support when the ball does go long, and, you know, we are going to try and put Feyenoord back into their own half. Eventually you see that with Negren's goal, how it comes about, of course. But before Negren's goal, they take off their boy Valente and bring on Quinton Timber as a kind of solid defensive midfielder. Maybe let Stein off the leash a bit more. Targaline is getting higher and higher up the pitch as the game goes on. Him and Engels, as I say, were the main kind of battle at times, especially as the second half wore on. And then Latomba, who'd been moved into left back, comes off to turn himself into a back three with Timber in front, and they put on Shaquille Van Persie, which is just hilarious, isn't it? You can, you know, Van Persie was very glowing in his praise for Celtic pre-match, and if you know you're going to debut your son against them, maybe that plays into a little bit of how he wants to paint the fixture, paint the opponent a little bit. I think he had like a half chance, didn't really get anywhere near it. It's probably understated to this point in the video, the job that Donovan did do, because although we did try and focus like to get out with like Yang down the left, etc., like you seen with some of the earlier goals, McKeown was playmaking for us down the right hand side at times, and Donovan did a good job of going forward and bringing that Sawyer back into defend with him. For the Negren goal, as you can see, it opens up with a very similar thing where we've had a throw-in, Donovan's got really high and taken his man back up the pitch with him. We're really forcing Feyenoord to recover into their own area, and we've not really committed too many bodies forward. You know, we have Dyson in the number, you know, up front still. Tuneki's got that Yang back post role. Somehow Scales is all the way up here. His left back, of course. But with them plus Negren, we've got, really, how many people have we got attacking the box? Sincerely, like 3 on top of Donovan. And again, this is a situation we don't always come out the better of, sadly, when there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players coming back to defend in a box. We're not normally too great with getting the shots away, getting the chances away. Negren in particular, who holds his space really well. Dyson, great team play, great determination, great awareness to cut it back. And Negren has missed, I don't know how many big chances since he's been at Celtic, but you know, when he's come off the bench and this ball has fallen to him, he is just thinking about one thing and one thing only, and that is hit the bloody target this time, Benji. He's thinking it, we're thinking it, and he absolutely lasers it into the top, it smashes, blasts off the underside of the bar, bounces off the ground, back into the net, 3-1 to the hoops with 10 minutes to go. And seeing a Swedish player score for Celtic in Europe, arms are raised, tongue out, going for it, under Martin O'Neill, this is how it feels to be Celtic. 3 points away from home. You've got to love it, man. You've got to love it. He knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. And then that got me thinking, especially when I was setting up to do the breakdown video here, is the team felt quite Martin O'Neill-y. The team felt very, you know, like football fundamentals, but try and win the game, use your strengths, try and exploit the opposition's weakness. And I ended up making a Martin O'Neill version of this game. Now, I didn't want to open the video with this because I thought, oh, I can't be bored with people coming after me in the comments. Please excuse the 1 or 2 people that I swap around, okay? This is how we finish the game before Bernardo comes on and Ralston, just to see the game out. Bernardo actually comes in to replace Hatate directly in the number 10 position. And when I was thinking about Martin O'Neill vision for Bernardo and for Ralston, I kind of got stuck in a way. And again, we'll talk about that. But Martin O'Neill vision, if you kind of go back and think about how the game went tonight, we've got McGregor and Engels in the engine room here, being tight and solid and good on the ball in midfield. We had McKeown just being that kind of, you know, you can support the striker, but you're a midfielder and don't let your fullback down. You can kind of, you know, Petrov. And then pure pace on one side of the pitch. We're not expecting worldies. We're not expecting too much more than pace to burn us up the pitch and to make things happen. And between Dyson and Hatate, like, you know, did we get a Henrik Larsson performance out of Dyson? I'm not saying that, right? But if you're Martin O'Neill and you're trying to like get to know the players and, oh, who's this guy like and who's that guy like? Definitely Trusty's mistake in the first half was definitely a Bobo Balde moment if ever I've seen one. And Donovan and McNamara, like, I don't know, I quite liked the thought of that when I was doing it. Valharin for Tierney is a bit, like, not perfect, I get that as well. But I thought there was some good comparisons here. You know, if you had Moravcik going on and beyond Larsson, you know, it's a very similar maybe tempo to what we might have seen. Don't really think any of them were the Chris Sutton. We didn't really have a John Hartson or anything like that in the team. But, you know, the first substitution is we take Petrov off and we put on Negren, Alan Thompson, I don't know. Agat comes off for Tunetke, Sean Maloney, I don't know. And then with Tierney Tierney comes off for Dane Murray essentially, then Scales moves to left back. And again, Celtic for backup left backs and stuff like that don't really have that many going around. You can take your picks of, I don't know, Stan Vargas and Oliver Tabilis and, you know, all these types of guys. It didn't really make a big impact at Celtic over the piece the same way a lot of these other players did. And again, McNamara comes off Donovan for Ralston. Is that maybe Kennedy? Could have maybe been that sort of figure, just a big, you know, just another defender and our centre back essentially. And then when it came to Hatate for Bernardo or Moravcik for somebody, again, I didn't really know who else we could put in. You could be Liam Miller, you know, God rest his soul. And Colin Healy was also in the building. Mark Fotheringham might have been somebody, but nobody else really made much of an appearance in midfield other than like Petrov or whatever. But I thought there was a lot of funny parallels with just some of the teams and all the rest of it as well. And when you see Negren, Swedish, you know, giving it the Larsson celebration and everything, I just thought, you know what, is it a Martin O'Neill vision of this team that could be fun? And I just ended up messing about with this before doing the breakdown. Let me know your thoughts and feelings. I'm not saying Dyson's as good as Larsson, or Rio's as good as Moravcik, or anything like that. But I do like the Thompson Negren. I do like the Petrov McKeown. I do like that. I like Agat and Yang as a comp. Maybe Maloney and Tunetke's a bit of a stretch. Maloney's maybe a bit more decisive. But I quite liked how some of it panned out. I thought I'd share it with you. And looking at the player ratings, it is a sight for sore eyes to see this in Europe. Now, Feyenoord, as you can see, weren't terrible in this game. The goalkeeper also had a bit of a mare with the error led to goal. But yeah, they were fine. They were a good opponent, weren't they? Dyson Maeda comes out the highest scoring player in the match with a rating of 77 out of 100, thanks to the 2 assists that he brought in, as well as a bit of passing. 13 passes in the game, 2 of them in the final third. No shots or big chances or anything like that for Dyson. This was a real, you know, Iron Man effort, you know, a real test of endurance and perseverance and all the rest of it. He lost 6 duels, he won 3, he made an interception. The assists mean more than everything else, but the endeavour and the perseverance that he put into this game probably does warrant the performance, the rating overall. Right in and behind him was Rio Hatate, who's had it's definitely got to be in his top 3 European performances for us, I think. With a 72 out of 100, he gets his goal and he made that assist for Yang's opener as well. Very good performance from Hatate, universally accepted as being a fantastic player in this one. And like I said before, like, you know, Hatate is good at the defensive stuff, but I think if you really just let him off the leash, maybe a bit more Moravcik, like you're the attacking player, yes, we might need you to come back and defend when appropriate, but we just want you to be in the final third. We want you to be in amongst the attacking sequences. Then you can get a bit more out of the passing and everything else that he has. Now, his shot at his goal is a bit of an easy one, right? But 40 passes, 7 of them in the final third. Considering this was a European match as well, I just thought this was a really good utilisation of Hatate. You know, he wasn't asked to do too much defensively beyond, again, just what was required and what was obvious at the time. And he was allowed to be basically a second striker in this game, which was great. Austin Trusty comes out with a 70 out of 100 rating in this one, by virtue of getting a last man tackle in this game. Now, when I was seeing the scores going through the match, I didn't really notice this happening, and then when I was hoping the highlights might have had it, but no idea where this happened. Again, comment section, feel free to catch me. Who did they stop? What was the moment? He gave away a foul, he made a few effective clearances, some good blocks. Duels won and lost, low volume, not really won enough. Pass count is good, only 1 missed pass, and error led to shot or anything like that hasn't really caught him on this one, so fair enough. But yeah, good performance from the big man. Scales comes out with a 48, Schmeichel 42, Donovan, Engels and McKeown all coming in with just admirably good performances. McGregor and Tierney on 27s kind of show you that, I can tell you before even looking at this, they probably just lost a fair amount of duels in possession. And I won't really be a slight on them, it's just that was a very focused area of the pitch where their better players were and where we were asking just bigger questions of, duels lost all over the place. and yeah, not that many passes. And but one thing that was a nice change of pace is we had some action from the bench. We had Ben de Gren coming off and getting a goal, bagging in a wee cheeky 60 out of 100. That was essentially all he did. He got one shot on target in this one, completed 6 passes, 2 of them in the final third, and like I say, he did come on. He was the first sub off the bench. Didn't really do much, wasn't really involved too much in the build-up play or us trying to get up across the ground. It was more just about being in the final third, support the striker. And that's kind of what Ben de Gren's all about. He's a final third player. He's not a blistering winger. He's, get the engine to do that number 8 box-to-box midfield thing, but it's not his bag. You know, you want him in the final third, facing goalkeepers, putting oppositions on the back foot, and he just gets into the right knack. He's got the right knack of being in the right place to get shots away, goal scoring opportunities, and yeah, he's our top goal scorer. Everyone's been hammering him for the big chances he has missed, but I feel that those big chances missed are going to be a thing of the past sooner rather than later. It feels like he's going up the levels, as has McGregor and 1 or 2 other players in this Martin O'Neill era. And as we leave the Feyenoord game now with our tails up, we've got 3 points away at Feyenoord, which nobody gave us. I added in the preview, but when we did the Europa League pre-tournament predictions, and I think for everyone else, Feyenoord away is not a game you think you're going to win. I did have us beating Braga at home, so that basically now we're bang on track with where I had us for the projections. I wasn't sure if we could have got a draw with Midtjylland away. Obviously we didn't. Our last game is against Utrecht. If we beat Utrecht, we get to 10 points. In between that, we have Roma and Bologna away. Now, be sure to check out the Europa League preview video if you've not done so already, and feel free to jump into those opponents when we come to analyse them and in the overall run of it. But we'll have a little look at this after we'll have Roma for the next manager, probably Wilfried Nonce, which again is a game that if we get anything out of, it's ahead of time. But we looked at the Europa League standings last year. 10 points is like the minimum number to imagine getting qualified with. So Roma and Bologna is Brucey bonus time, and then Utrecht is all about getting the job done. And this is all thanks to Martin O'Neill. If we'd won away to Midtjylland and lost to Feyenoord, we'd be in the same situation. But I don't know if we would feel quite as good about it, because beating Feyenoord just feels a bit better, doesn't it? If we're just being honest about it. No rest for the wicked, no time to rest on your laurels, because on Sunday we are going away to Hibs for Martin O'Neill's final match. Next video on the channel will be a preview for that, so hit the subscribe button if you enjoyed this one to catch out on that. Feel free to catch up with all the other content we've had going out on the channel, different topics and themed videos of stuff that you've requested and you've enjoyed in the past. On screen and out is some of those videos that YouTube thinks you might enjoy. Don't forget to hit the like button, jump into the comment section, all that good stuff, guys. Hail, hail, and mon the hoops.